Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to ordinary meeting of Council 4546. I ask you all please to be upstanding. Council acknowledges the traditional custodians on the land and waters of Hunters Hill. Council pays its respect to elders past, present and emerging. We are joined by Pastor Alex Grancher, who will deliver the prayer.
Heavenly Father, we give you thanks tonight. We consider it a privilege to serve this Council of Hunters Hill. Beautiful area, Lord God, and we thank you that we can live here, work here, and have friendships here, among other things. Lord, I commit this meeting tonight to you, Lord. We pray for wisdom, we pray for understanding, and for patience, one with each other, Lord God. As things put forward, items, ideas, we pray, Lord God, that you would give us peace in our hearts tonight. And we dedicate this service, this time together into your hands, dear God. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. And thank you to Pastor Alex for jumping in at short notice. We had Reverend Armstrong and him had to draw straws because we hadn't put anyone on the schedule. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on Council's website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on Council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIPA Act. Members of the public attending council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party. Members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, we don't have any apologies. We all have two councillors zooming in tonight, Councillor Williams and Councillor Tanous Sleeman. I call for declarations of interest. There being none, I move to confirmation.
Sorry. I call declaration of interest in item 8.2 and I'll leave the chambers for this.
That's noted. Any other declarations, councillors or staff, senior staff? No. I move to item 1 in the minutes, confirmation minutes for ordinary meeting 4545 held 26 May 2025. Moved. Councillor Prieston seconded. Councillor Tanous Sleeman, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried unanimously. Councillors, that takes us to item 2.1, which is a mayoral minute commemorating the life of Tony Ryan. And with your indulgence, I'll read the report. Tony Ryan, a Hunters Hill resident and a long-serving member of the Hunters Hill Council Conservation Advisory Panel, sadly passed away on the 1st of May 2025. Tony was born in Adelaide in 1940. When he was 14, he moved with his family to Melbourne and attended Xavier College. He later attended Melbourne University, where he obtained an honours degree in electrical engineering. Tony married Adrian and they had 4 children, Bridget, Stephen, Patrick and William. Tony and Adrian had their hearts set on living in historic Hunters Hill, the Sydney suburb of Hunters Hill, and the family of 6 moved here in 1972 with the purchase of a very plain Californian bungalow, the cheapest house in Hunters Hill at the time, at 8 Prince Edward Street in Gladesville. In addition to being an electrical engineer, Tony was able to perform most of the carpentry, plumbing and building roles with great expertise. Within a year, Tony made 2 alterations to this house with the addition of colonial-style corrugated veranda with cast iron posts and a wonderful stone iron cast front fence with rendered brick pillars. Both alterations were beautifully crafted and remain in place today. This work led him to question best practice in renovation, and so began his significant interest in preserving Hunters Hill's heritage houses. He joined the Hunters Hill Trust and was involved in the Vienna Cottage Committee and the National Trust. In 1977, Tony and Adrian purchased 2 dilapidated terraces at 10 and 12 Alexandria Street. At the time, these 2 terrace houses contained 7 separate units, each with its own bathroom and kitchen. Over the following 5 years, the Ryan family lived within these terraces while Tony removed all the units, built a 6-foot rendered brick fence on Alexandria Street, and ultimately returned each terrace to its original 1880s beauty. Once the terrace houses were complete, Tony and Adrian turned their attention to the neighbouring property, Hayling, in the 1879 timber cottage at 16 Alexandria Street, which was owned by Hal Missingham, the director of the New South Wales Art Gallery. They purchased the house from Hal in August 1982 and lovingly restored it. Hayling became the Ryans' family home for the next 43 years before it was finally sold this year in May. Tony and Adrian's children followed in their footsteps, their daughter Bridget winning awards for careful renovation of the grand 2-storey stone premise at 5 to 7 Alexandria Street after it had been devastated by fire, and his son Stephen also restored his historic stone cottage at 51 Ryde Road. Son William restored the Grand Victorian Italianate Aidan Clutha at 1 Everard Street. Tony's passion for heritage conservation was demonstrated by his time as a member of the CAP panel, the CAP. On his retirement from the panel in 2001, Tony was presented a certificate of appreciation recognising him as the longest ever serving member of that panel. As is true of his family, Tony has been a staunch protector and advocate for Hunters Hill heritage. Tony is survived by his wife, Adrian, his 4 children, his 11 grandchildren, and one great-granddaughter, all of whom miss him dearly. May he rest in peace. Councillors, is there any speakers to the mayoral minute?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, I think what you just read out in terms of Tony's contribution, not only to the local Hunters Hill community, but also his family life, show what a great Hunters Hillian he was. He was somebody who I knew quite well through my association with the Conservation Advisory Panel and his work on heritage conservation. I do pass my condolences on to his family, particularly Stephen and Bridget, who I also know. It's very sad that we're losing a lot of our leaders in our community, people that have a lot of knowledge and history. And Tony was not only known for his passion for Hunters Hill and heritage, but also for his skill in electronics. He probably installed during his time of running his alarm business just about every alarm system in Hunters Hill, and I still got one in my place. So we will miss him and the contribution that people like he make to the fabric of our community. So my condolences to the family.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other speakers to the mayoral minute? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. And now move to item 2.2, which is another mayoral minute, which is the rededication of the facility at Gladesville Reserve to the Paul Manton Pavilion. We do have a speaker to this item, Mr. Ewan McLeod. Ewan, I'll welcome you up to the lectern. You have 3 minutes. Thank you, Ewan.
All right. First of all, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear about this proposal of naming the new facility at Gladesville Reserve after Paul Manton. As the current president of All Saints, I 100% support the proposal. Paul was a very special person. He managed to balance and kind of blend his love for his family, his friends and football into creating a great community club, which is the All Saints that we have today. From a family perspective, it's great to have his wife Lee and 2 of his 3 boys here tonight, and it's also great to know that like 2 of the boys still play in the club locally, so the Manton name continues on within the club. From a friend perspective, you know, through the years, I can think back to my own experience and the welcome nature that he brought to his role, and you know, welcomed me into a kind of a new community and a new area. And yeah, Paul, throughout all the years, developed great friendships. You know, there's still people from his school days when he went to Newington. There's still school friends who play in the club. He's created a whole heap of friendships across different clubs, different associations. So again, through the friendship place, from football, you know, it's as it's noted in the minutes. You know, he's 30 years ago, he kind of created the All Saints that it is today when he blended the Strathfield Uniting Church with the Junior All Saints. in that time, he's become a life member of the club. He was president, secretary, coach, manager, basically you name it, he did it. So all in all, I'd just say, like, I so excited when I heard that this was potentially happening. So as I say, 100% support it, and really look forward to the day when you can see the Paul Manson Pavilion at Gladesville Reserve. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ewan. I'll just keep you there if there's any questions, councillors. If not, thanks, Ewan.
Thank you.
Councillors, I'll just, with your indulgence, read out the report. I'm pleased to see the tender for the new building at Gladesville Reserve has been awarded and works commencing this month. The new facility will be a fantastic addition to a well-used sporting field and will be functional, fit for purpose for our community. I propose this new facility is dedicated to the memory of local identity Paul Manton to honour his significant contributions to local sport and in particular to All Saints Football Club. Paul's history with All Saints spans over 30 years and started in 1985 when he founded Strathfield Uniting Church FC before merging with Junior All Saints Church FC. Thus, All Saints Hunters Hill FC was formed. Paul was a captain or coach or both of the teams that played, including the 35-1 and 45-1, winning several premierships and grand finals along the way. Paul was a life member of the club and secretary for many seasons before becoming president, the position he held until he passed away in 2018. At the time, his wife Lee said that she thanked God that he ran All Saints Hunters Hill Soccer Club as it gave him so much pleasure. Beyond All Saints, Paul was incredibly well respected within the Gladesville Hornsby Football Association, now Northwest Sydney Football, both at the association level and with the clubs across the whole area. Loving family man, Paul passed on his love of football to his three boys, two of who are here tonight, who continue to play for All Saints. It would be an honour and fitting for the new community facility in Gladesville Reserve to bear his name, commemorating his achievements, contributions and the value he has added to our municipality. If the proposal was adopted, signage will be erected on the new building as the Paul Manton Pavilion. Councillors, any speakers to this mayoral minute? Councillor Vergara.
I want to speak. I'm getting emotional. Sorry. I want to speak in favour of the motion. I just don't think Paul's contribution to the community. I'm so sorry. I didn't think I'd get emotional. Be underestimated. When we came to this area, despite being a rugby league family, as you know, Paul convinced my husband to coach an under-6s team. Scott then went on to coach for 10 years, and I was team manager some of those years. And today in the community, there are 18-year-old boys who Scott knows. We watched the over 40 games. He was just an amazing man who really has a massive impact on the community. So much more than he will ever know. So it's really bad emotion.
Councillors, any further discussion? If not, I'll put to the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously, and thank you all for coming, both to All Saints, but particularly to Paul's family. I know it's, this is something that council feels quite strongly about, something I think is fantastic. Obviously, emotions run high, and it's because of Paul's significant contribution to Hunters Hill and over a very long period of time. I was told to tell the boys that there's to be no more hooning in the street, or was it loud music, whatever music, loud music. So take it outside of Hunters Hill. But thank you for coming today. It means a lot to council and obviously to the broader community, and particularly to All Saints. That was obviously very close to Paul's heart and very close to the community. So thank you. Councillors, we now move to item 3.1, which is a notice of motion with respect to youth programs. We have a number of speakers to item 3.1. We have first speaker being Reverend Michael Armstrong. Thank you, Reverend Armstrong. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lane, for bringing this resolution in response to my email and my request to Council for considering funding for 2 significant programs for our young people. Thank you that other councils have also shown interest and expressed some of that in emails and by talking to me in the last week. Thank you. I truly believe that these two programs, costing just $15,000, represent some true value for money and a real investment in our young people in our community. In my experience, youth programs are often very focused on dealing with significant problems that have already become the norm, and these programs are cruelly called the cliff face. They either occur at the top of the cliff or at the bottom of the cliff. They're there to actually try and deal with something that's already become an issue when it's often too late. All programs are important, no matter when they occur, but the evidence is that if we put programs much earlier on in place, our young people get the best out of it. Way before they get to the cliff, we want a program that actually starts to work with them and changes their lives. Hunters Hill has significant issues amongst our young people. Significant issues amongst our young people. They're often well hidden behind walls and very large homes. But my anecdotal evidence is that we have a lot of young people heading towards the cliff. Some have gone over. In the last year, I've buried 5 of them, truly. So when I see programs like Enlighten and Man Cave offered by Hunters Hill High School and the massive impact that it had on their young people, I can't step back and just hope that there'll be some sort of funding that might come or grant that might happen. And so I'm asking you as council to step in and work with the schools to address this need. This is not a down the track moment, a current and urgent need. These programs are in no way religious, despite me supporting them. In fact, many in my community might be upset that I'm actually doing so because they take parts of the various things that perhaps don't reflect my culture. But when I see the young men and women who went through this program and their lives changed, then I can't step back. I need to step up. It was incredible. I've shared with you, councillors, some of the feedback from last year's participants. Anyone who's worked with young people knows that getting any feedback is really quite hard. But when both programs show that the students rate them as excellent, it's very good. That's incredible. Let me read some of their words. I learned that we should not let guys control us, that I can get help if I'm ever in a violent situation, how to identify a toxic relationship, that I should never compare myself to others because I'm beautiful the way I am, and that most of what we see on the internet isn't real. Another one said, this was the best day of school so far. This is year 10.
Sorry, councillors, extension of time. Moved Councillor Preston, seconded Councillor Lane. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. So this was the best day of school so far. Thank you. I didn't think it would be so emotional, and I loved the energy and the dynamic of the group. It made me feel safe and seen in my experiences. I learned that gratitude makes me happier, that I am perfect as I am, that social media tries to tear girls down, and that girls are amazing. Let me share with you one conversation from a young man who I've been working with for some time, who before the workshop felt very different to what he was after. He said to me, I learned what it is to be a real man, and not just any man, but a good man. For the first time ever, I feel like I know the sort of man I want to become. I feel permitted to be a man, and I feel alive. So let me conclude by thanking council for your work with our young people. I know you already do a lot, but to encourage you that there is a lot more to be done amongst our young people here in this place. And there are real opportunities to work with our schools and our P&Cs and our churches and other community groups, including All Saints Football Club, as you heard, does great work. I know the council has a tight budget, we all do. My parish already significantly gives towards youth and children's ministry, some $45,000 a year. We can't afford it, but we see the need and we keep pushing. I really do think $15,000 spent now is a small amount, and I know from actually spending it now reduces council costs down the track. Graffiti, other crime, reduced as a result of young people actually knowing what it is to be truly valued. More importantly, what it does is invest in our young people in real ways and prevent some of the costs to our community that are beyond financial, like those I've buried. I thank you for this consideration.
Thank you, Reverend Armstrong. Quite moving. Councillors, any questions? We seem to have lost Councillor Turners-Sleeman, but any questions to Reverend Armstrong? Not. Thank you, Reverend Armstrong. Our second speaker to this this notice of motion is Alastair Sharp. Thank you, Alastair. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't have very much to say. Simply to support everything that Reverend Armstrong has said. My own experience with young people has been mainly through Hunters Hill High School, where both my sons studied there. I have 2 granddaughters there. I hear really good things about the school, but I'm shocked that we should even have to be asking council to set aside even $15,000, because I got a real surprise when I looked through the agenda to see how much money council spends on legal costs, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Surely $15,000 should be enlarged to many times that. I simply say thank you very much, Councillor Lane, for putting this on the agenda. I think it deserves more than support. It deserves being magnified. Thank you.
Sorry, Alastair, I'll just leave you there for 1 second. Councillors, any questions? Oh, thank you. Thanks, Alastair. Councillor Lane, you've moved the motion. I don't see a seconder. Is there a seconder?
I do. I second that.
No, Williams seconded. Councillor Lane, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Look, there's probably not a huge amount that I can add to what Reverend Armstrong has already said. I will say that I've been talking about bringing a motion about youth support for some time with the community. And so this did bring it to a head in a way. The issue is a more long-term need, although we have this obvious short-term request, which is why we're dealing with it today. But that issue of deaths of despair that has previously been talked about, which Reverend Armstrong made personal for us, I think is one that we need to be worried about. It is the number one thing going on in the council area. And so beyond the immediate funding request, there is a third item, which is asking for council to explore the potential for a youth officer to coordinate future programs. Because this will go beyond the needs of Hunters Hill High School at the moment. And we know that we do need to do more in the community to look after adolescents in particular. And there are some great models like the Maison des Adolescents in France, and I put the link into the motion as well. So I'd commend it to council.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillors, there's been a speaker for. Is there any speakers against? Any speakers for?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Cassard.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to, to the director, if possible, if you can advise if there is a process that we need to go through when looking at funding for this program.
Thank you, Councillor Kassab. There is a process. What would typically happen is that people, including Reverend Armstrong, who's brought this really important item to the attention of council, along with Councillor Lane and yourself through our communications, would meet with council staff, with the general manager. We would get together, we would discuss the items at hand, we would look at the budget that we have or don't have, and then we would formulate a priority process list for the programs and services that we'd like to undertake during that year. And the program that Reverend Armstrong's spoken to would be one of those items. And then we would put a report to council, and then we would seek council's endorsement to move forward with that program with the allocated budget as well. Does that answer your question, Councillor Kassab?
Yeah, and just from that, in terms of community grants, obviously our budget around community grants is not sufficient to cover.
No, so the total amount of our community grants is $20,000 is spread across the whole LGA, and it's capped at $15,000 per application. So in no way would the $15,000 for this one program accommodate the total funds in that program.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Preston.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
as well,
you may.
I'm not sure if this is to the director or to the general manager through you, Mr. Mayor. What engagement do we currently have with Hunters Hill High School on programs that relate to mental health, if any?
General manager or director?
Or does it come up in the principals liaison committee meetings, or what's the extent of our kind of engagement on that level?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Preston. So there is a school principals liaison committee which meets quarterly per annum. So issues can be raised through that committee with the local school principals clearly. But more to the point is that what is Hunters Hill Council going to do to tackle the issue that our youth are struggling with at the moment, and we're seeing pretty much an epidemic across our LGA and across Metro Sydney, the state, and of course Australia-wide with our youth and issues that are going on. So what Council is doing is we are participating in a NESROC Northern Region Organisation of Councils program, where we are actually currently undertaking a number of website-based online programs tackling youth not going to school, mental health issues, etc. Our manager of communications recently attended a youth expo, a workshop around programs that are happening across Metro Sydney that council can tap into. So we are potentially looking at meeting with one of the organisers and running a program through the yarn, which would be free of charge for both youth and parents to participate in. But that's one of those other programs that we really need to get the details about, understand the resources and the cost available, and then prioritise the programs.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Annie. Yeah. So I guess where I struggle a little bit is that we, although I think Reverend Armstrong did send around that note, is I guess getting a bit more detail around the program and what resources we have to allocate to it. Obviously, this is not a normal budgetary process that we're going through here, and it is quite a significant quantum of money for council. Our entire grant funding is $20,000 for all of. Sorry, Councillor Preston.
Could I see if the proposer of the motion would be amiable to an amendment?
Yes. What's it? Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
yes.
To Councillor Lane. I wonder if we could amend number 2. Sorry, this is on the fly. Excuse me. But before or 1 and 2, perhaps, to first explore the program itself, both programs, I suppose, and what's involved and what outcomes it has, and what the statistics are on engagement and participation and that sort of thing, just before we allocate the funding. Or maybe we could ask.
Can I suggest perhaps instead of amending the motion, we could actually just defer that to get the details from Reverend Armstrong and the Hunters Hill High School PNC of the details, so that we could actually see if there's any duplication, or if we can assist in funding in other ways, or whether we fund it through the budget. I just think rather than amending this, we could just defer it for the detail and bring the same motion back. Up to I mean, that's.
I think, yeah, it's obviously a good thing to do. I just wonder about allocating the funding. I don't have any details as to what the program actually does, aside from anecdotal evidence from Reverend Armstrong. I'm sure it's great, but I feel I would like the council to explore either through the high school or directly with the managers of the program as to its details.
Councillor Lane, are you open to deferring this so that we can get a bit more detail on what is exactly involved in the process?
Yeah. So the reason I split 1 and 2 with a general allocation for youth programs, which wasn't prescribed, and then the engagement was to distinguish between funding youth programs in the round and this one. I agree that we need to do due diligence. We can't just sort of go in one hog. And this is a significant issue. I'm not asking for more than 15. We may discover, that there's a greater need throughout the LGA that we want to fund. But there's a 2-step process. So 2 already requires us to engage. If we engage, and I think I use the terms, with a view to or something, on funding. Yeah, so we can change the language of 2 if need be to make it clear that there's no obligation. But the purpose here is to to fund youth programs, and we do know that we have a need of at least $15,000, which is why I'd like to keep it on the books.
Councillor Lane, I'm assuming that's saying that you are not open to an amendment.
Well, no, because 2 already provides us with the ability after the motion to engage before committing funds.
It says using those funds, that's all.
As I said, if you feel the language is unclear and we need to say if appropriate or some other language, then we can happy to amend.
Councillor Kassab, you had your hand up.
That's okay.
Could I respond?
You can ask a question.
Member of the motion?
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would prefer if there's no mention of a specific amount to allocate, and if you would be, and the seconder, I suppose, would be happy to amend to perhaps remove item 1 to the motion and amend item 2 so that it says engage and then some language around exploring good programs and then allocating funds to the ones that council deems effective, appropriate. I don't know the words. I'm just thinking on the fly.
Councillor Lane.
Yes. Councillor Williams, as a project manager, may wish to elaborate on this, but my experience in government with funding programs is part of doing a program is you first define the scope of that program and its amount, and that it isn't open. So if we're creating a program, I think it is quite important that we define what that amount is as part of it. I think that it was very interesting that Annie took us through the history of the grants program, because we did, if you remember, have a $5,500 shortfall in that program, and rather than keeping that in our operational budget for one of these circumstances, we promptly spent that money, $1,500 on a flagpole and $4,000 on a bust. So I think that in the context of what we spent the $5,500 in the program that should have been funding this, the $15,000 is more than reasonable.
Can I ask how you came to the figure of $15,000, Councillor Lane?
That was the minimum amount that I knew would be required for the 2 programs that Reverend Armstrong.
Okay, so the intention is okay, and this is, I suppose, the issue is that this is all fairly unqualified in terms of what we're providing already, and I really do think that the director does need the opportunity, in my view, to assess this program and the needs of obviously Hunters Hill High School and the rest of the community in providing these sorts of programs. What I'm sort of struggling with is we sort of need staff input here, and we also need detail of what will go into each of these, so that we know that we're getting bang for our buck. I'm sure that we are, Reverend Armstrong. This is absolutely not a reflection on either of these programs or on you. It's just I think we need to coordinate this a little bit more stringently, and make sure that we're allocating resources of the council in a way that gets the most bang for our buck. So that's where I struggle slightly here, councillors. I'm sorry, it wasn't a question to you, Councillor Lane.
No, actually a question for you.
Yes.
So this will come up in relation to 3.3 as well, and you will have seen correspondence with the General Manager prior to this meeting. But we have a 10 business day period to give motions to council, and my understanding of the reason why we give 10 business days notice to council for council-led motions, even though we only get 4 days to look at the motions that are put by the staff, is so that staff have time to consider those motions and provide the relevant information. And I had a meeting with the General Manager in relation to the 3 motions. This wasn't raised. But he did raise some other things in relation to 3.3 that I saw clarified, and I was told that they couldn't be clarified until the next meeting. And my concern is, from a process perspective, what are the 10 business days for, if not for the staff to provide this information? And could they not have provided it to me before the meeting if it was so important?
Oh, Councillor Lane, we've heard from, sorry, councillors, please. We've heard from the director that she feels like there needs to be more detail and rigour. I agree with her, and I believe that is good process. Quite frankly, when we're sorry, Councillor Lane, please, is not to allocate money sort of on the fly. We've asked the director whether or not she feels comfortable with this program being run in this way, and I think that we are entitled for more detail when we're acquitting public funding.
My question to you was, what are the 10 business days for?
What are the 10 business days for in terms of putting motions in?
Yes.
It is for the general manager and senior staff to apply the motions as per the Local Government Act and see if they're legal or not, generally. Some motions are not allowed, as you well know, are not allowed under the Local Government Act if they are improperly submitted.
Sorry, we have Councillor Crassler here. I understand she was the one that changed it from 4 to 10 business days. So you're saying the extra 6 business days were for legal matters?
To give the staff the opportunity to put quite complicated business papers together.
Right.
Yes.
Point of
Sorry, Councillor Beeston.
It's incorrect information being mentioned by the councillor to my left. It's the 10 business days, as I understand it, the general manager, I'm sure, can speak to it better than I, is so that everyone at the table and in the staff can consider the motion. What it's not for is to enable the staff to enact those motions. You need a motion of the council to be able to make effect to those motions.
Correct.
And to do due diligence
is there a
on
question
this
in
motion.
here?
No, it's a point of order.
No.
To do due diligence on this motion would be to enact the motion effectively, because it needs the resolution of councillors to say, yes, we agree that we should be considering these programs and therefore allocating funding. So I think that's what it would be for. That's my point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thanks, Councillor. Councillors, we've had a speaker for the motion. We've had questions. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor Vergara.
Not speaking against the motion. I just note that Councillor Tanus Sleeman has lost her voice but has made a comment. Is that able to
on the Zoom?
Yes.
Sorry. Prefer to defer so that we can review in detail and look at the more long-term planning solutions. We should also consider the other schools in the area. For those online and watching, Councillor Tanus Sleeman has lost her voice, so I'll give voice to her discussions as she puts them in the chat. So apologies for that. Councillor Vergara, did you wish to speak further?
I wish to raise a point of order.
Yes.
No, but I have to do it immediately. The point of order is that provision 6.9b of the Code of Conduct requires all councillors to remain silent while the chair is speaking. I think Councillor Lane ought to be reminded of that by the chair. And then I move that the motion be put.
You can't move that the motion be put yet because I haven't given the opportunity for another speaker for and another speaker against. Is there another speaker for the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I think the point that Councillor Lane is making, and certainly Reverend Armstrong was highlighted, is the urgency in our community to deal with problem youth issues. It's paramount that council provides some input to that process. This issue about due diligence, I think, is important. However, the point that was made that council staff have had 10 days and the general manager is entitled to put a report to council based on any notice of motion to clarify or to put context. That hasn't been done, so one can only assume that council staff are happy with it.
Sorry, Councillor Williams, we just did hear from the director that obviously she believed, and I share her view, that there ought to be more due diligence with this, but please continue.
Well, if that's the case, Mr. Mayor, I would have expected the staff to put a report together for council so that we could balance that view. I think it's paramount that council act on this issue. If at the end of the day, after council has done further investigation and assessment, the staff are entitled to put a recommendation back to council to say, okay, these are not the programs, but these are. I think council has a need, and as Councillor Lane has highlighted, and Reverend Armstrong and Dr. Sharp have mentioned, council needs to act, and I think this is an appropriate way forward to initiate this process. At the end of the day, after stage 2 of the motion is done and more consideration is done, we might come back and find that it's a bigger issue that needs to be funding. And if at the end of the day these aren't the right things to fund, then council can rescind that motion. I think it's important we move forward. Due diligence is essential, and that can be done in the next step of the process. So I support the motion.
Councillor Williams. Councillors, any other speakers against? Councillor Prieston.
I'm not speaking against the substance of the motion. I'm not in favour of the way that the recommendation is currently drafted, as I've indicated to the proposer of the motion. I'm not comfortable allocating funds on the fly. I know that we've had ample time to consider, but that doesn't mean that I've been provided as a councillor, as a pillar of governance for the community, to make a decision on the allocation of funds. I'm happy to have the motion say that we should engage with Hunters Hill High School and the other schools in the LGA, ideally, and removing the words using those funds, and to explore the opportunities that we have to commence such programs. I'm also happy to explore the potential for a youth officer in council. Myself, my first job was interning with Margaret Kelly in the council chambers, so I understand the benefits of that. I was, I think, 14 years old, and I didn't have to be paid. I wasn't paid for that work, but I did assist and learn. So that's obviously beneficial as well. I think, subject to what the proposer and seconder of the motion think, I would be happy to reconsider, but in its current form, I can't support it.
Thank you. Any speakers for the motion?
And I understand I can propose an amendment with the seconder's support.
You can, yes.
I think that's a good suggestion. I think if I can, again, this will have to be on the fly, so apologies. If we can bring up the motion.
Sorry, Councillor Lane, you're not chairing the meeting, but
okay.
Yes.
Sorry, before you start typing, if I can just readdress.
No, if you can amend the motion first, and then.
Oh, okay. If we could amend one to take up 15,000 to say a sum to be approved by council. I would like at the end to say indicatively 15,000, or it's not a big thing. The second one, after the comma for next year, take out using those funds and replace it with and other schools. Yep. That's it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask?
Sorry, before you do, apologies. Councillor Williams, can you read that on the screen?
I can.
Yes, are you comfortable?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Okay, so that now becomes the amended motion. Councillor Prieston, you have a question?
Question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the proposer. Would you consider including some language into around exploring, like doing the actual due diligence on the, because as it stands, it's just in relation to funding the program. I want to know more about it. I want to know its merits, what's involved, how many children participate in it, that kind of thing. So maybe something around, engaging with.
Okay. Perhaps I can assist in amending the word funding to supporting or resourcing, because it may be that we have internal council staff that can assist in the day-to-day running of that program.
My question is, would you consider?
Sorry, I'm not. You'd have to. Would
you consider introducing some language around helping us understand the actual programs themselves? If you know what I'm saying.
Yes. So if we said on the merits of, comma, and
on resourcing, yeah, that works. In my view.
comma, and
resourcing now, yeah.
Sorry, and the end is a bit ambiguous. It should say and similar programs at other schools, I think.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable, councillor? Sorry, that's amended by councillor Lane. Is it? Are you comfortable, councillor Preston? So we don't keep going around.
My problem is only that it says engage with the head of welfare at Hunters Hill High School, and then on those, so maybe it's and engage the second
And
part.
I think it does say and similar programs at other schools. So.
And
yeah, but you can't engage with the head of welfare at Hunters Hill High School for other schools. That's my
and
point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Williams.
We need to follow
that's just my view.
here. Just titty tatty around the table is not council process.
Thank you for your assistance, councillor Williams.
Just trying to be
Councillor Lane, do you wish to make any further
for the syntax? Yes, if we make it and other schools on similar programs, I think it fixes that issue.
And other schools,
yeah, that's okay.
On similar programs.
On similar programs. And other schools on similar.
So we're engaging with other schools on similar programs. I think that works.
Is everyone comfortable? Councillor Williams, are you comfortable?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
Motion.
You can, Councillor Preston, but yes, you can foreshadow a motion. Are you foreshadowing an amendment?
Yeah, it can be an amendment. If this motion fails, then I would put forward the following. So one, well, obviously that the council commit to supporting youth programs and explore the appropriate allocation of funds out of the general budget, semicolon 2. Would you mind scrolling up slightly? So sorry, so that I can see the existing language. Thank you. Engage with and then enter subparagraph A. Oh yeah, that's fine. The head of welfare at Hunters Hill High School on the merits of and the resourcing involved with enlightened education.
Sorry. Slow it down, please, councillor.
Sorry. The resources involved with those two programs, the enlightened education. Yep. And then semicolon. Subparagraph B. Sorry, and the word and after the semicolon. Each other school in the municipality in relation to similar useful programs that are on offer. Semicolon, word and then number 3. Explore the potential for pretty much the exact same as what's written above. Or Mr. Mayor.
That's your foreshadowed motion? Yep.
It should say explore the potential for a youth officer, etc. from number 3. Yeah. It's my foreshadowed motion.
Thank you, Councillor Prieston. We've had speakers for and against. I think we're any other speakers for the original motion as amended? Any speakers against the original motion as amended? Right of reply, Councillor Lane.
I think we're broadly in the same camp, which is excellent. I think that the thing that we're missing here is that we're talking about Hunters Hill High School, which is obviously significantly less resourced than the other schools in the municipality, but than some of the schools. You're right, other than the public school in Boronia Park. But we're perhaps splitting hairs. Invite you to support the motion, which I think does effectively the same thing, but otherwise we can vote for different language.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That is lost. The foreshadowed motion now becomes the motions moved by Councillor Prieston, seconded. Councillor Vergara, any discussion? If not, sorry, Councillor Williams.
I would like to add an amendment.
Speaking, do you want to add a further amendment?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Item 4, that a report be brought back to council at the next meeting. Yep, that's it.
Councillor, sorry, is that acceptable to the mover and seconder?
Yeah, it's very nondescript, but sure.
Yes. Councillor Vergara, yes, that becomes part of the motion. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Again, that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Now move to item 3.2. We have one speaker to this motion, item 3.2, which is Alastair Sharp. Thanks, Alastair. You have 3 minutes.
Before I start, I was unsuccessful in seeking to speak on item 3.3. Your computer told me that I had already submitted a request for that one. You might like to look into that, and I hope you'll allow me to speak on 3.3.
You may speak on item 3.3, but we're at 3.2 at the moment.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Like Councillor Lane, I was flabbergasted to open the agenda for the April council meeting to find that it ran to over 600 pages. Do councillors ever find the time to read 600 pages? I doubt it. I like Councillor Lane's suggestion that 4-page summaries of each agenda item would enable us to actually understand what was going to be discussed tonight. But we need more than that, because the numbering scheme of the agenda is often similar or indeed identical to those used within the agenda documents. So at the moment we're discussing item 3.2, but searching tonight's agenda for 3.2, I find there are 30 entries in the agenda labelled as 3.2. So I'd like to suggest that instead of having a 600-page long document, that the agenda be formulated as concise 4-page summaries of the various items, and the items are actually listed under their own separate headings. That's the Councillor Lane's second suggestion of improving the feedback form to allow for more than 2 lines of text. I trust that this has already been actioned.
You finished, Councillor? Sorry, Dr. Sharp. You finished? Yes. Any questions, councillors? No, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Sharp. Councillor Lane, you have your motion on page 8 of the paper.
I'm happy to second that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Williams.
Just for clarity, I appreciate your feedback, Alistair, on the agenda papers themselves. The purpose of the motion is for the long form documents that council is preparing itself. So it specifically refers to where a plan or proposal is being shown for comment or exhibition. So it won't be everything. We do also get the 2-page summaries of some description in the agenda themselves. As Dr. Sharp said, it is a huge amount of reading that we have to do with very little notice, and perhaps that's something we can look at down the track. I'm more concerned with the ability for the public to be able to digest and understand what's being presented to them so that they can make intelligent comment. We had 2 members of the public make comments on the IPNR, and I can appreciate the view of some that that's just because people aren't very interested in the integrated reporting integrated reporting framework. But equally, I think 4 very long and laborious documents with no markups to show how they've changed from the previous document, and then a 2-page form on the website is disheartening, to say the least, and not in accordance with best practice or IAP2. And I raised with the General Manager specifically that we approved an engagement strategy, and the only thing the engagement strategy says in detail, because it is only a strategy, is that a specific email address will be provided for feedback during exhibition, and it even gives the form of that feedback email, but that still doesn't appear on the feedback form. So people are continuing to send me very interesting objections in relation to the Miranda, which I appreciate, but nevertheless should be addressed to info@and that doesn't appear on the website. So we still need number 2, but we certainly need number 1. As I said, the IPNR should have been accompanied with a markup of what had changed since the last CSP. I did that myself and put it on the website so that people could access it. It took a while. I do read all the documents, Dr. Sharp, and that takes a while. It took quite a while to read the 400 pages of Gladesville. It took 33 minutes for council's own staff to explain Gladesville to the local planning panel. And the first question that a member of the local planning panel asked of the staff at the time was, what is it exactly that you're asking us to approve? Which, again, having spoken to people in various panels, they are still struggling to understand exactly what it is we're proposing. And so I think it's just good sanitary practice, if you want to put it that way, for us to summarise what it is we're intending to do. I understand from having previously spoken after our last briefing with the Communications Director that this is something that Council is considering, but I think it needs to be more than a best intents. I think we've now seen 2 further exhibits with problems in the process, and we need to make sure that things are being done correctly. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers against? Question, Councillor Kasab.
Question to Councillor Lane through you, Mr.
Yes.
I'm just interested to know, because as far as I'm aware with councillors I speak to, everything you've suggested is done exactly the same at every other council. Not suggesting it shouldn't be changed. However, I was just wondering if you actually had seen other ways of doing it, or whether, like, is this being done at other councils? Because I know that each council does the same, like has papers like ours. I'm not saying I agree with it necessarily. I'd love to read less, right? But do we know?
We can always have meetings fortnightly rather than monthly.
That's very true. Do that,
which we used to do.
I know. We could do that.
I would suggest that the papers actually don't get much smaller when you do that, though. Unfortunately, Councillor Lane, have you?
Yes. So actually, General Manager had one suggestion, which I think was quite a good one. That some councils require that large documents are submitted 10 days before, so same as we do for motions, that we would actually have more time
To the council.
to council, so they wouldn't arrive in the papers. And I think we could add it to this or a future motion that significant items or complex items are given more time. In the state government, when we're considering significant issues with public feedback, we do something called a What We've Heard report, which is where we go into detail about what's been said and why we think it's right or wrong, and then we usually mark up actually it's usually in a table form. What was the wording before? So for example, the draft urban design guide and apartment design guide, when we went through that process, we did a huge, what we call an amendment table. So it doesn't have to be markup, it can be an amendment table. Yeah, there's lots of those practices. The 4-page summary, and again, there's no magic, but a lot of people have used 4-page summaries because that's about the level of communication that people are engaged at. So I think it's a good practice.
Is that at other councils though?
Sorry, Councillor Kassab.
Oh, so for example, when I prepared the active transport strategy for Randwick, we did a 4-page summary, and it usually appears above the main document as the summary document. I don't know if they have a motion to support it or if it's just good practice. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillors, any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? I'll reply, Councillor.
Actually, a question back to Councillor Kassab, perhaps.
If you may, yeah.
Would you be interested in relation to that question around the complex documents coming to council earlier, the 10 days? We could amend that, but I just as a question to you, is that something you'd be interested in?
I guess I would want more information from the general manager before, just because I know we have talked about getting the papers out earlier, and I know that there's reasons for why they come out when they come out. So I wouldn't want to. I'm not necessarily against it, but I wouldn't want to commit to that without.
Yeah, we can leave it for another.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Right reply necessary.
Can I move that the motion be put?
You can move that the motion be put. Moved, Councillor Vergara, seconded. Councillor Kassab. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, I'll do that again. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour?
Yes.
Against?
Aye.
That is carried. That's lost. Councillors Lane and Williams voting for, councillors Prieston, Vergara, Kassab, Tanuslim and myself voting against. Item 3.3, open space plan and associated documents. We have a number of speakers. No, we don't. We've got one speaker. To this, Alastair Sharp again.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Mr. Sharp, and you have 3 minutes.
In his recommendations, Councillor Lane reminds us of the opportunities presented by our access to Lane Cove and Parramatta rivers, and our many often fragmentary pieces of open space. Prompted by this item, I consulted Council's local strategic planning statement, titled A 20-Year Vision for Land Use in Hunters Hill Local Government Area. That dated March 2020. A quarter of that 20-year period has already elapsed, and I don't see very much action in improving the connection and the accessibility of public spaces. So I'm attracted by Councillor Lane's proposal to explore ways of linking the existing fragmentary walking and cycling routes, as well as investigating additional connections to give better public access to the waterfront. It's sobering to be reminded that since adopting the LSPS, we now face the impending increase in population density coming to all parts of Sydney. And although we might not enjoy it, it's going to come here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Victory Park's quite nice though. That's a good connection. Councillors, any questions? If not, thank you, Alastair. Councillor Lane, I assume, or I shouldn't assume, is there a seconder to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Lane, wish to speak to your motion?
I do. I've just said affirms because we had a motion back in February 2025 to look at the section 711 and the study. I have not heard of anything other than that council may be exploring whether or not that might be the good idea, and as it's been a number of months, I would like to see a timetable for that work to be done. I understand from the General Manager that we're getting a report next month, although I am concerned by some comments around moving away from a 7-Eleven because we would be foregoing millions of dollars, and I've provided some analysis to that effect. The third part, the open space plan, is a more focused version of the open space strategy that I brought to council some months ago. And as Alistair has pointed out, it now focuses on those two key walks that are set out in the LSPS. The LSPS identifies them but doesn't have a way of carrying them forward. And the intent of this remains to prepare a spatial strategy so that we can understand what those connections are. The reason I brought it back at the moment was precipitated by the fact that the Gladesville Marina, the Woolwich Marina came back because irrespective of the merits of that, which I'm sure we'll talk about in great detail, because we haven't articulated the fact that we're looking for a continuous foreshore in that location, even these amended proposals that are coming back to us aren't providing us with the kind of public benefit that a foreshore open space plan would provide. We're currently speaking to Transport for New South Wales over land adjacent to the bridge, which as well, if we don't get that open space connection, we'll lose an ability to have a southern access through. And, you know, I'm sure we could look at more, but we need to start talking about this because the only thing that's envisaged as is discussed in the end is remnant lands. So I think that it's sort of past time that we commit to a spatial strategy so that we understand spatially where it is that we need to make these key links so that we can make an informed decision when we're negotiating with developers in planning proposals and when we're choosing to use or dispose of our own land.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion? Councillor Williams? No?
Well, no, there's no speakers against, so I assume I support totally what Councillor Lane has said. It's fundamental that we have a spatial strategy, and 7-Elevens are also an important part of council being able to fund and build on its social and infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Preston?
Can I move that the motion be put?
You may. Motion that the motion be put. Or moved, Councillor Preston, seconded Councillor Vergara. All those in favour? Against? Do that again. All those in favour?
Mr. Mayor, you haven't had speakers for and against.
I've had a speaker for, a speaker opportunity for a speak against. You spoke for, then I've offered the opportunity to speak against, which is the benchmark that you set for putting a motion be put. That has been put. Councillor,
you should have moved.
Sorry, Councillor Williams. Councillor Preston has moved the motion. Motion be put. Seconded Councillor Vergara. Now we're putting the motion. All those in favour? Against? And an abstention, I'm assuming, Councillor Williams?
No, it's inappropriate.
Okay.
You should have.
Are you voting, Councillor Williams? We need to know whether you're abstaining, voting for, or against.
Against.
Against. Thank you. Now put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'll do that again. All those in favour?
I'm in favour.
Against? That motion is lost. We now move to item 4.1, which is petition objection to the marina expansion. We have a number of speakers to this item.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Preston.
We just double check that no members in the gallery are waiting on items that are far down the agenda, just in case. E.g. the flag.
We have a number of items, councillors, but there are no speakers to this one, so I'm
after this motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. But there are a number of speakers to item 4.1, so I think that we should just plough on. Councillors, item 4.1, petition objection to the marina expansion. We have a couple of speakers to this item. The first speaker is Beverly Bennett. Thank you, Beverly. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the council for accepting the petition on behalf of SOS Save Our Shores. We're a group that's a local group, and I also acknowledge that we've sent a letter to Mayor Miles outlining a multitude of concerns relating to the proposal for Woolwich Marina expansion. That would certainly take more than 3 minutes to run through. So there have been further signatures every day to our petitions, so that represents a small and now growing over 600 at last count and a couple of dozen today, and increasing with every conversation that we have within the community. Every community presentation and every mention in the media, we see those numbers on our petitions increase. We want to thank the council for recognising the defence of this valuable and important site to the community. It's been a powerful statement when we can walk around the community and say that our council unanimously rejected this proposal when it was brought to vote in its initial form, as did Sydney North Planning Panel. Having councillors stand in solidarity with us, as the Sydney Morning Herald photographed and reported on this story, councillors who sit in the chamber and people who've since become councillors, is again a real demonstration of support that the community respects and appreciates. Many within the community didn't recognise that this remains a live issue. And so I think it is important to acknowledge that it is important to ask the question in these conversations so that the community are informed. Asking the question directly about the marina proposal has been instrumental in raising awareness and increasing submissions to the council website opposing development. Even this weekend, I saw a young man visiting from Gladeville with his girlfriend and dog Benny. They were very confident that this council, the Liberal guys, were going to particularly support the opposition to this marina proposal. Barbara, a resident in Hunters Hill who was having a coffee, been a resident here for more than 60 years with a steadfast belief that her council would throw everything at defending this site where her children learnt to swim and her grandchildren continue to fish. As we heard in the prayer this evening, this is indeed a privilege to live in this municipality. And the other side of that coin is the responsibility to treasure and protect what we have in this place. The examples above show a spectrum of constituents who are concerned about this proposal and the confidence that the community holds in this council to stand up for our history, respecting and protecting the success of the battlers and other grassroots activists in protecting our Sydney Harbour as being ours for the public good, which must always take precedence over private gain. And I thank you for your support in that matter.
Thank you, Beverly. If you could just sit there for a second. Councillors, any questions of Beverly? Sorry, Councillor Vergara.
I noticed on the SOS webpage there's a donate button, so you can donate to fund the opposition to the campaign to oppose the marina. How much has been raised, and is there any intention to use that? Because I noticed some of your members are respondents to the proceeding. Is there any intention to?
That's actually not an active button at the moment, so we are not actively collecting donations. I think we've all seen that the economy is quite tight at the moment, and so people are very willing to contribute in kind with support and with raising their voice, but in fact the donations is not something that we have at this point in time.
Councillor, click the button. Thank you.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Lane.
You said that there's been more signatories. What are you up to now?
It's over 600 and 2 dozen in the last 24 hours. So I think we're probably nudging 650 on there. And I also recognise that the council website opposition submissions, every time that we meet with the community, there's a small blip there too. So I would like to hope that that's the contribution from people that we're speaking to, informing and being aware of what's happening at that site and the potential loss for us all.
Beverly, Councillor, any further questions? No, Beverly, sorry, I've got a question. You're one of the authors of the letter that's sent through to me, which is why I tabled this petition. When you sent that, I also received the petitioners, I'm wondering what format you've used. I'll ask the general manager, but when someone goes onto the website, onto the petition, usually they are, usually there's a preamble that's a formal preamble that says we the undersigned. I didn't see that on the website. Are you able to provide that preamble to us? Because that's very essential in petitioning in the correct format. And I think that there's model petitions, obviously, that can be downloaded. But I just wonder whether you had put that preamble in.
I'll have to take that as a question on notice and get that back to you.
Yes, because that's quite. We've tabled the petition anyway, just for intentions purposes, but the preamble on the petition is actually quite important, just to know what the undersigned are signing to. We obviously get it, and we've obviously entered into a period where this is in the hands of the court, and we're fighting it. But I just wanted to know whether or not what you'd had considered or had included that preamble.
I think that you'll find there is a preamble saying we, the undersigned, oppose the expansion of Woolwich Marina, which threatens to privatise our shared waters. So there's a preamble prior. Help us protect. Will you sign, and will you have your details published?
Cool.
So is that the question you're asking?
It wasn't in the document.
It's on our website.
Okay,
I can send you the link. You can sign.
No. I've seen that. It's just that the preamble wasn't in the list that you sent, but that's fine.
You can forward that through if that's something. It is on the website, and I think it's very clear what people are signing up for.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second speaker to this item is Maureen Flowers. Thank you, Maureen. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm speaking on behalf of the Friends of Kelly's Bush and our team of bush carers, who are all very appreciative of Council's long-running support for this historic site. Today, instead of our usual headaches around maintaining native flora and fauna, the bush carers and the Friends have a more pressing concern. That is the amended plan for the extension of the Woolwich Marina, which now completely wraps around the whole of the historic Kelly's Bush foreshore. It's more than outrageous that the applicant has refused to accept the unanimous rejection by Council and the Sydney North Planning Panel and has pursued the matter in the Land and Environment Court. It is even more unfortunate that it's fallen to Council to defend this attack, but we're encouraged by the unanimous support of our councillors and Council's resolve to fight this unacceptable plan. Apart from the overpowering bulk and visual impact on this important heritage area and the serious effect that constant lights and noise will have on our wildlife, our fears for this development are that there is a very real and present danger of fire, which has become much more frequent on luxury vessels of late. We, of course, have an example of this right on our doorstep, when the super yacht Andiamo was engulfed in flames and burned for 10 hours before sinking at Woolwich Dock in September 23. Sadly, this is not an isolated incident, with large vessels made of flammable materials carrying increased fuel loads and new technologies. This is not a situation we can afford to ignore. The access to the area for firefighting vehicles is confined to one road along the peninsula and then via narrow streets with parking on both sides that even the locals have difficulty negotiating. This route could be impossible for fire engines to access in a real emergency, and in the meantime, Kelly's Bush would burn. If the unthinkable did happen and a fire were to start on one of the many vessels planned for the new marina, our incredible historic bushland would not stand a chance. There is growing public concern and interest from the media of the potential threat to this icon, regularly visited by people far and wide who bring economic benefit to Hunters Hill, demonstrated by the many hundreds signing the petition and by the huge number of online and written submissions. After the successful green ban, this land was gifted to the people, and we congratulate Council for recognising their duty of care and being so resolute in comprehensively fighting to preserve it. We are confident that this alarming proposal will be rejected by the Land and Environment Court for all the obvious reasons, and have no doubt that with all the goodwill that's been generated, Council's role in this will be applauded for carrying on the legacy of our wonderful battlers and having the grit and determination to stand up to private interests.
Sorry, Maureen, are
Right.
you close to finishing?
Yes.
Yes, I'll let you finish
Having
your
the
sentence.
grit and determination to stand up to private interests who seek to take over our precious land, hard-won public asset.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not usually that lenient, but there you go. Councillors, any questions of Maureen? No, thank you, Maureen. Our last speaker to this item is Jim Sanderson. Thank you, Jim. You have 3 minutes.
Tabling the coverage by the Weekly Times last Wednesday of an event that was held last Sunday. But just in case any councillors have not seen it. But my concern is that we're blessed to have an extraordinary amount of parkland in our municipality. Well, I think the most outstanding part of that is the stretch of foreshore that reaches from goat paddock around Kelly's Bush. This didn't occur by accident. That we have this parkland is due to the hard work of generations of our remarkable community. In the 1970s action by the Battlers of Kelly's Bush to lead to the first green ban in the world, and the ultimate purchase by the state government, and the land becoming a state-listed heritage item under the care and control of Huntersville Council. A generation later, the Woolwich-based Foreshore 2000 group, along with other groups collectively known as the Defenders of the Sydney Foreshores, successfully worked to convince the then Howard federal government that former defence sites around Sydney Harbour should be returned to the public rather than sold to developers. In 2020 or 2001, the Sydney Harbour Foreshore Trust was established to manage, care for, and provide public access to these assets. Woolwich Dock and Parklands, Clark's Point Reserve, Kelly's Bush, and the UNESCO World listed Cockatoo Island and state-listed Spectacle Island across the Parramatta River make up an extraordinary heritage precinct that is steeped in maritime history. This precinct and the legacy of those who fought to protect it must be preserved in perpetuity. Today, without doubt, the most intrusive or the most intrusive development in this area is the current Woolwich Marina, just with its 35 berths. I believe in 2010 the council made an error in the recommendation it made to the panel making that decision by not properly applying the provisions of the SREP or Sydney Harbour Catchment 2005, which continue to exist in the section 6.28 of the Biodiversity and Conservation Act. These provisions provide that the development must be consistent with the principles that Sydney Harbour is a public resource owned by the public to be protected for the public good. Public good has precedence over private good, and the protection of the natural assets of Sydney Harbour has precedence over all other interests. It defies.
Sorry, Tim, it's your 3 minutes.
I've got a little to go.
I'll move extension.
Moved extension of time. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Lane, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? I'll do that again. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? And that is carried with the dissent of Councillor Tanu-Sleeman.
Thank you.
Another 2 minutes. Thank you.
It defies belief that the marina owner, having been unanimously refused by the Sydney North Planning Panel, has now applied to the Land and Environment Court for a development that we've already discussed as being completely inappropriate. Maureen has suggested a number of points. There are many others that could be made. I don't think I'll go into those now because there is just so much that is wrong with this development, including endangering other harbour users. The lack of a heritage study for the current proposal, and numerous other reasons. I just finished by saying that this parkland is about the greatest asset that we have, in my view. It must be protected from further degradation at all costs.
Thank you, Jim. Councillors, any questions? No, thank you. Councillors, we have a motion on page 15 of the report, just to receive and note the petition. It moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'll just, would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Prieston?
Not just yet.
Any speakers against? For? Councillor Williams, I assume, yes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to personally thank the community for their thorough analysis and engagement with this process. As highlighted there, this is such a important precinct, not only for our community and Hunters Hill, but for the broader region and even nationally. As was highlighted by one of the speakers, this is a quintessential heritage precinct with a UNESCO site, Kelly's Bush, Battlers, Woolwich Foreshore. It goes on. The community has invested blood, sweat and tears in this area to make sure it's preserved and that integrity is maintained. We have a situation now, which I don't think is existing anywhere in the world, where you've got such an important heritage precinct that is going to have a large development put right in the centre of it. And I think council has done the right thing. The North Sydney Planning Panel has done the right thing to reject this unanimously. We're now in the courts, and so it's in the court's hands. And I do think it is quite interesting that the courts have allowed this amended application to go on exhibition without relevant documentation, particularly around heritage and Aboriginal aspects. How can the community adequately assess the proposal as it is amended without some fundamental documents before it? I think the court would see that as being something that's not acceptable. And I don't think it's acceptable that we can't see all the documentation during an exhibition period. Anyway, I think it's one of the most important decisions that council has made in the past in terms of opposing, putting an opposition into the proposal. The amended proposal is now in the courts, and I hope that the courts support the Hunters Hill community, the council, and the North Sydney Regional Panel in its opposition to this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any speakers? Sorry, Councillor Vergara.
The mover shall consider an amendment.
Yes, you may. Yep.
I have provided a proposed amendment to the General Manager today, so that can be brought up.
Sorry, did you want to read out your amendment, Councillor?
That council note receipt of the objection marina letter. 2, that council write to the authors of the objection marina letter to 1, thank them for the letter and for their opposition to the marina expansion campaign and seek their support in the raising of funds to support efforts to stop the marina expansion. 2, notify them that council has taken steps to ensure that the grounds for opposing the DA, as stated in the letter, are appropriately ventilated in the Land and Environment Court legal proceedings. And 3, provide the trust account details of the solicitors representing council in the Land and Environment Court legal proceedings and invite the organisation to continue to raise money to assist funding the current defence
and an appeal, if any, which could be council or the marina component itself, by depositing funds in the opposition, depositing funds raised from the opposition to the marina expansion campaign into the Solicitor Trust account. I'm happy to speak to that if any.
Is the mover comfortable to accept that as an amendment? So that becomes the motion. We'll move back into debate. Councillors, Councillor Vergara, you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I think we're all in furious agreement that we should oppose this. The elephant in the room is the funding. We have the Hunters Hill Trust writing to us, noting that its greatest concern is council's finances continue year after year to be in a pile of stake. The expenditure on this defence so far is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is the elephant. We want to spend as much as we can on it, but we have to be sensible. So I'm seeking the support of the community to raise funds to fund the defence and including an appeal. Without doubt, with the resources of the applicant, if they lose, they will appeal. We want to be in a good position to defend it. I think, bearing in mind the obligation we have to act as a model litigant and seek compromise where appropriate to avoid costs, if we've got the benefit of a fund from the community, we can be less compromising, for want of a better word. So I know no one's spoken about it, but hundreds of thousands of dollars so far. The estimate is hundreds of thousands of dollars more, 100,000 more if there's an appeal. This is just an invitation to raise funds and contribute to the opposition.
Thank you, Councillor Vergara. Councillors, any other speakers for this motion?
I'd like to move an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Move an amendment, Councillor Williams.
3.3.
To add a point 3, there is already a point 3, so you might have to add a point. Oh, sorry, point 3. No, you're correct.
Numeral 3, not Roman numeral.
Yep.
Point 3.
Too many lawyers in the room.
Fortunately, I'm not one.
Yeah.
Just a layperson. Where is it?
Yep.
You ready? Okay.
Yes.
The council request the state government to provide assistance and funding in this important battle against the marina proposal.
And can I just suggest, Councillor Williams, I know I'm not guiding you here, but perhaps that we write a letter to the local member as well as the relevant ministers. I'm happy to do that.
Yes, you can add that in. If I get a chance, I can speak to that.
Yes.
So.
Is there a second to that motion? Oh, sorry.
No,
is the mover and second? Is the mover and seconder agree to the amendment?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Williams, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's important to note that Kelly's Bush is owned by the state government, and the state government have a responsibility, as does council, in the courts to properly consider and ensure a good outcome. The state government should be asked to be involved in this process through its agencies, particularly Transport for New South Wales and the whoever the owner of Kelly's Bush is. They have a stake in this and they should be assisting council in funding and resourcing opposition.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillors, you have a question, Councillor Priest?
Yes. Would I be able to add?
It's your motion. You can do what you like if Councillor Vergara is in agreement.
Pending Councillor Vergara's view, I would like to also add the Sydney Harbour Federation Trust to point 3 to ask them.
We can ask them. I'm not quite sure that they're going to be forthcoming, but noting their budget constraints, but we can certainly ask.
That council request the state government and all other bodies relevant
bodies.
Yeah, whatever.
Yep.
Along with the Minister for the environment in federal parliament, the Honourable Murray Watt. I'm thinking maybe that we should reword it though to say that council right to.
Councillors, I've made a comment about lawyers in the room before, which I won't retract.
Just maybe that council right to the state government and all other relevant bodies, along with the Minister for the Environment and Federal Parliament, the Hon Murray Watt, MP.
To provide assistance in funding. Yep.
Seeking
assistance.
assistance and funding for this. Yeah.
Councillor Vigari, comfortable? Yes, thank you. That is now the motion. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Lane.
It's a question. We had a representative for SOS here. It probably would have been good to put this to them when we were asking about the donations, but if it's at all possible, can we bring back?
We can't engage with the audience, I'm afraid. But what is the crux of your question?
Well, we're proposing a solution, and I just wanted their opinion on it because we were asking a question about donations, and it would be helpful to understand from them if we're going to ask them to do something, what their view is.
Yeah, I'm happy to engage with them in a less formal environment if that assists, Councillor.
I just don't think we should be surprising people all the time.
They're not named.
Sorry, councillors, please. Sorry, any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Preston, right of reply.
Yes, please, Mr.
Yes.
Thank you. I won't speak for too long. I think everything's already been said. I think, as Councillor Vigara mentioned, we're all in furious agreement that the amended proposal to expand the Woolwich Marina should be objected to at all levels and at all costs. Not necessarily all costs within council's budget, but in theory, all costs. Hence why I think that this amended motion is appropriate. I think the more hands that we can rally together, the more assistance that we can receive from our community members who cares so deeply, evidently, and passionately about this issue, the better outcome we will achieve. In relation to engaging with the community groups, I think there's the substance of the motion is not that it obliges that community group to fund or help fund. It is merely a call on them to seek donations from the community. So I think there's no real issue here. They don't have to if they don't want to, but it would help, is all we're trying to say, I think. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm in support of the motion as it stands and wish to reiterate this council's objection to the proposed expansion of the Woolwich Marina.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We now move to item 4.2. We have two speakers for this item, the first of which is Annette Gallard. Thank you, Annette. You have 3 minutes.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak to council. The Hunters Hill Trust formal submission is included in council papers, so I'll assume that councillors have noted that our main comments are in relation to the proposed library building, the Gladesville Master Plan and council's finances. Due to council's willingness to consult residents about the proposed library building, we're now better informed about this as a concept, its proposed elements and dimensions. We are interested and somewhat relieved to hear that this is not a rehash of the now abandoned property strategy for Gladesville Road, Fig Tree Park. And if council is able to make it a reality, it will be a building that conforms to an 11-metre height limit and should have a footprint of around 1,200 square metres. While many details such as adequate parking and traffic are yet to be addressed, we are perplexed that council does not have ballpark capital and recurrent costs. These could be tested and adjusted as the proposal develops, and would inform the community about whether it is affordable. My experience over nearly 40 years is that this is a standard procedure for architectural projects. Many would say what's not to like about a state-of-the-art library integrated with community facilities, meeting spaces and halls. A funding blowout, such as we experienced with the Baronia Park community facility, where the building cost more than double the original budget, would dent the enthusiasm of the most ardent supporters. Our fears are that as the proposal develops and gains momentum, it will be harder and harder to pull back, and the proposal will gain a life of its own. Libraries that open daily with modern technology and current reading materials may struggle to break even with the available government funding, and we're yet to see the potential sources of capital funds, although I understand that there is likely to be some grant funding available. A business case could shine a light on the potential sources of funds and how this aligns with the likely construction and other costs. Is it the council genuinely has not done the homework on this, or is there a lack of transparency? This is alarming in either case. Having examined the budgets in both the operating plan for 25-26 and the long-term financial plan, we are concerned about a number of things. We know that the operating plan should not and cannot identify every item of council expenditure. The disclosure of funding proposed is grouped around categories of spending.
Sorry, Annette, councillors.
Yes, move extension.
Councillor Williams, extension time. Seconded Councillor Lane. All those in favour? Against? I'll do that again. All those in favour? Against the dissent of Councillor Preston.
Thank you.
Please continue. Annette, you have 3 minutes.
And the disclosure of funding proposed is grouped around categories of spending, so it is difficult to see how much council is allocating to specifically defending the Woolwich Marina decision. We're all in furious agreement here. It's a really high priority for a range of reasons that have been covered already and convincingly in the hundreds of submissions that have been put forward. Just as importantly, council needs to demonstrate that in this most important of cases, it will not fold when developers with deep pockets decide to flout process and use every opportunity to overturn decisions legitimately made under council's planning powers. We're also concerned that council is continuing to rely on asset sales to bring its operating budget into surplus. This demonstrates poor governance and will eventually lead to council spending its way to its own demise. When the budget is assessed with the results of the quarterly budget reviews, we can see council's approach is optimistic rather than conservative. This year to March, the planned asset sales haven't occurred, resulting in yet another deficit rather than the very slim planned surplus. We urge those councillors who in the past have said that they would rather leave the finances to the experts to continue to pay due attention to the financial documents this time and demand better. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette. Any questions, Annette? Thank you, Councillor Preston.
Thanks, Annette. Are there any elements of the plan that you do like?
Oh, yeah.
Can you let us know?
Yeah, and they were in the submission. You would have seen them. We particularly like the fact that you've incorporated the net zero implementation plan elements in there and the urban forest strategy. And we also noted in our submission about the work that you're doing in documenting the history of Hunters Hill. That's really important. And there are probably other things in there as well.
Thank you. Councillor Lane.
Sorry, noting we're on 4.2 for the IPNR. We only have so the full submission is the one that's here in the papers. There's nothing cut off.
There's nothing cut off. And because the documents were grouped together on council's website for us to comment on. We haven't broken it up into the budget separately to the community strategic plan.
Councillor Prieston.
Would you indulge me for one more question?
You may.
You mentioned or casted an aspersion rather about poor governance in relation to bringing the council back into a surplus budget. Do you or the trust have any ideas as to how we could raise funds for the council to make it financially sustainable?
Look, I would need to have a really
sorry, I'll just clarify my question. I'm asking not because I think that you're an economic expert, but since you think that council is acting in poor governance, I would love to know if there's any.
Okay.
I'm not being facetious.
No.
Genuinely, we welcome any ideas.
Yeah, well, as a company director of 10 years standing, you know, governance and making budgets balance is a core requirement. In order to do that, you have to engage with the budget really thoroughly. Now, several years ago, when I came along and spoke to council about another matter that was related to the budget, the response from some of the councillors was, you know, I leave that to the experts. Well, from a corporate governance point of view, you can't do that. You have to engage in the detail. And you know, you wouldn't expect that somebody external to the council who doesn't have the opportunity to, you know, grill council staff about what's in the budget and why, you wouldn't expect that I would know. You've got a very slim council here. You only have 54 staff. You don't have a very big operating budget. You're making a huge commitment with defending, you know, the decisions that you've made on the Woolwich Marina. That's fantastic. But obviously, I don't want to see, the Hunters Hill Trust doesn't want to see council disappear. You are the longest standing council in Australia, I understand, I've been told. And the way that the budget that you work under has been structured over the years, where you're having continuing deficits and you're having to cut into your assets, you know, you don't have a long future. So I guess from the point of view of the fact that we all love Hunters Hill and we want it to survive and we want Hunters Hill Council to survive, we urge you to take this problem seriously and do what you can.
Sorry, councillors.
Rest assure you that we have interrogated the budget. I'm in finance and I'm a legal background, so I've got the governance and I've got the financial acumen, and we have various skill sets on this council. So whilst we're small, you can rest assured that we are interrogating these papers. Sorry,
councillor, can I also clarify that council is not running, it's running an operational deficit, but is in surplus after other fees and income. So council is not running a deficit. It is running an operational deficit, which is when you remove all grant funding and other allocations, it runs a deficit on its operational budget. Now,
yes,
we all agree that we need to get on top of that. But council's actual position, after you include other income, is a surplus position.
Yeah, I understand that.
So, but you keep referring to deficits. Actually, an operational deficit built into a subset of the budget. That's not a reflection of the budget position because we're in surplus.
Reflection of the councillors.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Councillor Williams.
We're not in surplus because we didn't realise the asset sales, so it's misleading.
After grants and other funding, we are. Sorry, Councillor Williams. Councillor Lane.
Thank you. I just wanted to distill, if I can, and clarify the nugget of advice that I understood that you gave us within all that, which was that you would like us to define a funding envelope, and if I can indulge, with contingency around major projects as part of our long-term financial planning. That is the specific recommendation you made in relation to Councillor Prieston's question about what we could do better.
Well, I certainly think that that's I worked in government for a long time. I've been chair of an organisation that's had multi-million dollar projects, building projects and joint ventures with large players like these. And in every case, we have engaged with what the envelope, including our contribution, might be upfront in the process. It's always so hard to pare it back afterwards.
I'm sorry, General Manager, like to add anything to that?
Oh,
because we are
Mr. Mayor,
doing that process.
I think I made it very clear at the library public meeting the other night that the process we're in at the moment is just to define the brief for the library and the space, other spaces that may well be able to fit on the site. And the next stage was to actually develop the capital budget to see whether we cut our cloth to fund that, and also the operational plan going forward to make sure that we can afford to do it year in and year out once we build it. So yes, I agree. We've got to do all that, and it's a stage, and you wouldn't do a budget before you knew what you were going to put in, because I can't tell you how long a piece of string is until I know what the council's desires are, and then we have to cut our cloth to fit what we can actually afford down the track. So I agree with you what you're saying, but I think we're just one step away from that. That's the next job I do now. I've got a brief, and that'll certainly come back to council later this year, and go out to community for community consultation as well.
Thank you, General Manager. Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second speaker to this item is Jim Sanderson. Thank you, Jim. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, you probably noted that the second of the submissions from community members, if you recognise my style, was mine. I'd like to make a few points on that. I'm appreciative that some corrections have been made on the basis of the claim that has been removed from the papers that the council is in deficit, or is not in deficit. First point I'll make is the quarterly budget review as at 31st of March 2005 in Council's May 2005 business paper revealed that the other income of 2.5 million from planned sales of property has not been has been deferred till the next financial year, resulting in an even worse outcome, that the net operating deficit resulting before capital items is expected to be about 2.8 million. The draft 2025-26 operational plan proposes that the net operating result before items is of about 1.06 million in round figures, but relies on net gain from asset disposal of around about 2.6 million. In the event that council cannot again dispose of the assets, this is potentially a net operating deficit for capital items of around 1.5, 1.6 million. The delivery program speaks of the long-term financial being outlining how we will enhance our financial strength and sustainability, and that's a quote, while showing worsening operating deficits before capital items for the next 10 years. The delivery program also maintains that transparency and decision-making processes in financial reporting are critical. While the draft CS delivery program and operational program say nothing about the makeup of the proposed asset sales, presumably they're council land. To be clear, I absolutely oppose selling council land to fund continuing operations, which is unsustainable and doesn't respect intergenerational equity. As a child growing up in Hunters Hill, I had the great benefit and pleasure of playing on our foreshores and exploring back lanes and bushland. Those pleasures must be protected, and the fund raise must not. The other point there being that if assets must be sold, the funds raised by these sales must be used for new assets, and the community must be given a clear choice as to whether the proposed.
Sorry, Jim, that's the end of your time.
Can I just finish the sentence?
Finish that sentence, sorry. Mike.
Okay.
I'm getting very lenient tonight, Jim. Yes.
The finishing of that proposed sentence, or that sentence is, if asset sales must be sold, funds realised must be utilised for new assets, and the community must be given a clear choice as to whether the proposed new asset or the existing asset is valued more highly.
Thank you, Jim. Councillors, any questions of Mr. Sanderson? Councillor Vergara.
Jim, you'd be happy to know that I wrote Jim Sanderson on the top of that submission. To recognise it. And you said you don't support selling council assets to fund continuing operations. Opposition to the Woolwich Marina is a continuing operation. It's the defence of the development application decision.
Yes.
Would you not support the sale of an asset like the road reserve strip on Lloyd Avenue to fund the defence to maintain Kelly's Bush?
Well, there are other possibilities, and I did have this at the end. That I mean, I did look at some of the capital expenditure that's proposed, and among the capital expenditure, I noticed is that $140,000 for a replacement perimeter fence around Brony Park Number 1. Now, council has thrown about $3 million into that particular area to assist those sports, and I think I also spoke in that submission that that there has to be some equity in the way we distribute these things to community. Now, Woolwich, the damage that Woolwich Marina can potentially do into what I regard as probably the largest parkland asset that this council has anything to do with is enormous. It cannot be accepted, and it would be. It simply has to be funded properly by some means.
But the answer is still no. So find the money elsewhere, and if there's not enough,
okay.
sell asset is what you're saying.
Okay. To return to the point about expenditure on Baronia Park, I noticed there's 150,000 for new drainage, which is probably probably quite necessary. But at the same time, there's $140,000 for a new perimeter fence, which, having looked at the current perimeter fence, I can't see any justification for replacement. So $140,000 for what I presume is something that the mayor has wanted for some time in terms of a picket fence. Is totally unjustifiable when there are far higher priorities. I think that it's a matter of the budget needs to be sharing equitably among different sectors of the community, not prioritising some groups to the expense of others. And any damage that is caused to our beautiful parklands between the Goat Paddock and Kelly's Bush would be unacceptable to just about everyone in the community.
Still don't sell an asset like a road reserve to fund it. Thank you. That's really unfair.
Councillors, any further questions of Jim? Thanks, Jim. Sorry, Mark, Councillor Lane, sorry.
We have high years and low years for our legal fees. We're currently in a low year. I note that 2 of the high years, in fact, all 3 of the high years were when you were a councillor. And I understand that you went to IPART for a special variation that was ultimately approved by the entire council. So with benefit of that, are there any other things that you did in other high years for legal fees to cover those costs? Because we obviously did lots of defences during those years.
Look, I've always regarded our heritage as being, absolutely worth protecting, and it has to be by some means or another. There will be high legal years and low legal years, and I mean, one of the very high ones, of course, was the work that council did to prevent the sale of land by St Peter Chanel Church. That was a successful outcome, and I think most members of the community would thank those council of that time for that. But even compared to Chanel Church, I believe the importance of keeping this enormous parkland we have down on the Woolwich foreshore, that has to be about the highest priority of this council in this term. I can't think of a more important issue. It simply has to be funded one way or another. And the other thing is, I mean, there's extraordinarily brave members of our community that have joined, and that the position that they've taken has to be respected. And I think they may too be looking for funds, and I guess we've got to consider how that will occur. But yes, we did have special variations. I was part of a council during which time there were two special variations. The first one, well, in fact, in all the cases, there was opposition from councillors within council, and I was quite amazed that after fighting an election, I think it was in 2021, where having put on, I think I argued in one of the last council meetings of my term, or first term in council, that it was important that we left open a means of funding the incoming council. And that incoming council happened to be that the first council that is where the current mayor was elected as mayor. It was very interesting. There was a sudden turnaround in the way what was thought of about special variations. Suddenly, a special variation that independent councillors were the worst in the world for having proposed was suddenly moved and seconded by incoming Liberal councillors. So,
sorry, Jim, to clarify, the special rate variations were not pertaining to legal budgets. They go into very specific items, and apart from, and this is the question I have, apart from jacking up rates, which is what you're talking about with special rate variations, increasing rate revenue, are there any other things that you would support to increase revenue? Because all that we have discussed, and all that I recall you discussing in your time at council, is how our rates are actually quite low and that they should be higher, and that you always supported special rate variations and a permanent increase to the base rate, which I opposed at the time and was one of the dissenting councillors on, because I didn't believe at the time, nor do I, that that should have been that a 27% increase in rates revenue, which is levied on the community, was in any world acceptable.
I don't have the figures in my head, Mr. Mayor, but with respect, I don't believe that's
I do, because I remember it very, very feverishly.
Yes, and I can remember some quite misleading material that you produced at that election.
Yes. But is there anything outside of increasing rates that you'd support if the operational deficit but real surplus is such a problem? Then what other things would you do?
Well, there are items of expenditure that I see as rather extravagant, and in particular, $140,000 for a big expense around and that would make a pretty significant contribution toward legal fees for any matter at Woolwich. The other thing that, and I spoke of this at the Library Information Centre the other night, or our Library Information Session the other night, and that is we seem to have jumped to a position with that it'll go on Gladesville Road. We haven't, there are potential other possible positions. And with that, I think we're delving into that prematurely. We could probably hold that back a little bit. And as a result, defer a little bit of expenditure. As I said in the remaining part of what I was going to say, it can be a combination of deferral, cancellation, or reducing expense on in some other areas. It all can be done. So there's a couple $100,000 in the budget for the library process. That will be delayed a bit. 140 for picket fence. So that's there's quite a lot there that could come out of this budget.
Thank you, Jim. Councillors, we have a motion on page 18 of the report. Moved Councillor Vergara, seconded Councillor Tanous-Sleeman. Any further discussion?
I'd like to speak against it.
Councillor Vigar, would you wish to speak for it? Hold. Councillor Lane wishes to speak against it. Councillor Lane.
I've already raised the formal flaws with the engagement process, which is reflected in the parlorist turnout in response. I also note, as I responded to Councillor Kassab's question, that we haven't done anything to detail how we have redressed the few comments that we did get in any detail so that we can understand whether or not their comments have been understood. So I took it up on myself again to go through in detail the changes, and I discovered that other than some minor cosmetic changes, we haven't really changed anything in the document, and that means that, among other things, we don't have any SMART goals, so nothing specific, measurable and actionable in relation to some of the key elements of the proposal. So, for example, we're implementing the integrated transport strategy by measuring it against number of complaints. We're measuring our PAMP and bike plan against number of EV chargers that are going to be installed. And in fact, that's the example that council gives in how to read the DP. I think the documents remains as flawed as it was when it went on exhibition. I'm disappointed that, even minor things like looking at the alignment with the sustainable development goals that could have been improved so that they weren't paid lip service wasn't looked into, and they remain as they previously were. No doubt I'll hear some partisan silence in response, but I just don't think it's a particularly good document, and I am disappointed that once again council is trucking forward with an almost unchanged document, without really looking at what people are saying in detail, particularly the Trust's excellent and detailed submission that they did on a number of parts of the document.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any speakers for? Councillor Kassab.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to commend Annie and her team on their fantastic work on this suite of documents, including the Community Strategic Plan, the Delivery Program and the Operational Plans. I wanted to speak specifically to the Operational Plan on page 17.3.1.2.2. I am so pleased and excited to see that we as a council are making a commitment to engaging with young people and making them a priority. Young people play a vital role in our community, both now and into the future. We have the opportunity to engage our community across generations and for young people to learn from those that come before them. They provide a source of energy and innovation as pillars for change. It is important to note Council's commitment to the operational plan and, as it says, to actively seek youth participation in the development of youth events, services and programs. This will ensure that all young people throughout Hunters Hill have the opportunity to access these services, no matter where they attend school, many of which who don't attend one of our 7 local schools. This is an area I'm incredibly passionate about, having come to this place through my involvement with both Ryde and Hunters Hill councils throughout my teenage years. I believe as councillors we have the opportunity to make our mark within our community however we see fit, and I look forward to being involved not only in this area of the operational plan, but across the many disciplines within. Thank you again to Annie and the team.
Thank you, Councillor Kassab. Any speakers against?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Williams.
First of all, I'd like to ask a question in relation to what is purported to be a submission by me in the business paper. I at no stage provided a submission. It was notes which were requested by the staff on a discussion I had with the general manager. I find it inappropriate that is turned into a submission. I find it baffling as to why it has highlighting on it of yellow. So I'd just like to raise my objection, Mr. Mayor, to the fact that the process is pretty poor, and I find it exceptional that I wasn't given the opportunity to refine and finalise any documentation if they wanted to put it in the business paper. Having said that, which I think is very regrettable, I find the documentation, again, as Councillor Lane has said, unchanged in any substance. I find it really challenging as a councillor and as a community member to be just told that we've considered the matters. In previous times, I can recall that council, and many times, council provides a detailed list of objections, concerns, and then provides a detailed response to how it's dealt with those. This report, or these reports, just pay lip service to any community or any comments in relation to the documentation. There's very little change. If you look in one of them, where I've raised the issue that there's duplication of funding in the Capital Works program, they're still there. No one took the time to take them out. And that's indicative of the whole documents that we have before us, is that they don't take us anywhere. They just talk about a whole load of things that might or might not happen. The issue that's been raised about the budget is paramount. I've asked time and time again for council to be involved and to be able to sit down and go through in detail where we spend our money and why we spend it and how effective that expenditure is. We're told in the later documents of the long-term strategic plan that council will do that. But why hasn't it done it? We've had a workshop this year which didn't involve any details. And I just find as a councillor, it's very hard to understand where council is heading with its finances because I'm not involved in the detail or even given the opportunity to work through it. So to me, these documents don't deliver what I think the community expects. They don't deliver what I expect. They provide an opportunity here for council to make bold statements about projects it's going to deliver, but it doesn't disclose what's involved in delivery. For example, the library. Has the community ever been given an estimate of what the costings might be? Certainly in a briefing, we were told there was a costing potentially of $30 million. Nobody knows. Would the community still want a library if it's going to cost them that sort of money? To me, the cart is before the horse. We need to sit down in all these projects to make sure that we have business plans before we engage any further. I think council has done a good job engaging with the community, particularly the library issue. The consultants there do a good job, but it's only engagement. It's not a plan. It's not a way forward. There's no underpinning business statements or way council's going to deliver these projects. So to me, we're building unreal expectations in our community. And I think council needs to stop and have a look at these projects it's proposing to do and make sure it can, in its consultation process, inform the community as to how it's going to and what cost it's going to be to deliver those. I get very frustrated because I put a lot of time and effort into these things, and I gave a very detailed set of notes. I stress notes, not a submission. And I can't see, except for one or two of the 50 or 60 odd points that have been at all addressed in the documentation. And I find that is unacceptable as a person around the governance table, that I've not been given any explanation as to why these issues haven't been considered or addressed in whatever way. In terms of the budget, look, we need to sit down and go through it in detail, not put it off to the future. I can find $500,000 just off the top. Again, somebody made reference to the fence at Boronia Park. No consideration of the heritage aspects. That's a heritage area. To put what fence, how much, where, throw $150,000 on the table. In the budget, there's $100,000 for the Woolwich waiting shed. I think we've spent a lot of money on that. We could defer that. There's $200,000 on this library project, which again should be deferred until we know exactly what the feasibility in a business case for it is. So to me, if you sit down and go through the budget in detail, there's a lot of opportunity for council to save money, and particularly with the prospects of continuation of legal battles, then these items should be deferred. That I mentioned, those three, or probably the Buryanya Park fence should be dropped. It's not appropriate. But the other two could be deferred under a budget further consideration by council over the next 6 months. There you have $500,000 sitting in the kitty as a contingency plan. We just put a big contingency amount on the Ladesville Reserve facility. I can't see why we can't have a additional contingency set aside within our legal budget to ensure that we can adequately defend legitimate and important cases of the community. Anyway, I'm sure I've taken more than 5 minutes, but as you can see, I'm a little bit upset about how this process has taken place and the responsiveness to issues that have been raised. I think they're legitimate issues, so I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any speakers for? Councillor Priest, your question you can.
Question,
yes.
please. Through you, I think, to the General Manager. Do you feel like the submissions, comments where the council staff have deemed appropriate are reflected in the plan as it stands?
Yes. Councillors, any speakers for the motion? You've got right of reply at the end, Councillor.
I did it.
Oh, you do. Sorry, Councillor Priest. I've lost track. Councillor Priest.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I won't speak for long. I just want to echo Councillor Cassard's sentiments towards the council staff. This is a multiple 100-page document which has been through public consultation, interaction with the community, interaction with councillors on a number of occasions in briefings, as Councillor Williams has mentioned, and also on the floor of this council in bits and bobs. So I think it's been a tremendous amount of work, and I appreciate all of the blood, sweat and tears that you all of the directors have put into this respectively. And thank you for listening to us, because I do feel like my comments, at least, or my feedback anecdotally has been reflected by this document. I think it's a great vision for our suburb. It considers intergenerational aspects. It considers, providing the community with precincts that we deserve, like a new library, like facilities that we have been lacking for so many years. A theme in tonight's council meeting has been the prioritisation of the allocation of funds, and it is clear sitting in this chamber that there are multiple competing interests, and that is normal because we are a community of multifaceted and different people, and everyone has different needs and everyone has different wants. The job of the councillors is to try and summate all of those needs and wants and put forward the best vision possible for the community and allocate funds where we see fit, and approve or reject proposals for projects as we see fit. Now, I think that this report, as it stands, is the perfect direction for us to be able to be equipped to make those decisions on behalf of the community. It delivers on the services and amenities that our community needs. And I will note as well, okay, let's remove for all intents and purposes that Councillor Williams' name from the list of feedback submissions. Then we've only received 4 submissions. To me, that tells me that the community is comfortable with this vision. And one of those 4 is extremely favourable. So truly, it is my job as a councillor to be accountable to a broad spectrum of views from the community and to represent the community as a whole. This, to me, is a very comprehensive and succinct document. It addresses the needs of the community as required today. It will change, it will mould into something, it will shift, and it will translate into whatever it needs to be at that time. But it is also reflective of everyone in the community needing and wanting different things at different points in time. And I think that is a huge challenge. That is a huge challenge of any government, at any level of government, and with any staff, particularly, as some speakers tonight have pointed out, our slimly resourced council in our small LGA with our limited amounts of funds. So I implore the council to enact the vision which is in this report, and I'm supportive of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Councillor Lane, you got a question?
I just have a question of Councillor Preston through you. I wasn't aware or in attendance of any budget sessions where we actually went through any of these figures and the blood, sweat and tears. We had one workshop where we put up some post-its. Did I miss a session?
No, in the last briefing, Councillor Lane, we went through the budget.
That is correct. That is correct, Councillor Lane.
So,
councillors, sorry, councillors, please. Given there's only Councillor Vergara for right of reply, I'd like to also particularly thank Annie Goodman and her staff. She does a tremendous job putting this all together. These documents are, very torturous is a good word, put together under standard form, and Annie and her team does a phenomenal job. The quality of these documents as compared to, and I have to be careful because Annie's done so many of them, but as compared to previous iterations of, and I hate to think how many of these you've prepared actually, Annie, but this is a phenomenal format, and it will set the vision for the next 4 years. For council and obviously as we move forward to deliver things like the new library, upgrading Victory Park has transformed that part of Hunters Hill, as we look to what the future of Gladesville looks like, as we deliver more services, not less services, with the budgets that we've got, as we look at the resources that we're putting into the community and the external resources that we can get from grant funding and other programs that can go through to acquittal. It's a very positive time for Hunters Hill. Not everyone is going to get everything that they want, but obviously it's been big on delivery in the last couple of years, which is fantastic. We've got new facilities for the first time in decades. So it's wonderful to have a council that delivered last term and that is going to continue to deliver all the vision statements that are in this document in the term to come. Councillor Vergara, would you like right reply?
You stole my thunder.
Sorry.
The community want and expect council to continue and improve the amenity and service delivery to meet the diverse needs of the community. This is clear from the feedback council staff and council received last term, and frankly, on the re-election of the mayor by a considerable majority. Last term, the council delivered on that expectation by the industrious efforts of its staff to find ways to fund the building and improvement of community assets like Victory Park and the Boronia Park Sports and Community Centre. These draft documents again exhibit the hallmark productivity of council staff and the keen awareness of council staff and the elected body that we must pursue new and creative and economically rational ways to respond to the community expectation that will enhance the livability, productivity, connectedness and economic success of the Hunters Hill community. It is clear that council and council staff are aware of the need for improvement in council's finances. I am confident that council staff have a plan, continue to be economically fashionable and to find ways to diversify council's own source revenue. I'm confident that council staff, with the support of elected councillors, will implement the plans in these documents responsibly, collaboratively and transparently. We must support council staff in these endeavours. Calling for cuts in programs, services or expenditure is just simply short-sighted. It is particularly short-sighted when the same people calling for cuts invariably oppose council taking action to increase its revenue. Actually, I withdraw that. Those same people are generally happy for council to increase its rates. Well, I am not happy with slugging residents more and more again and again. We can and should find ways to deliver the improved amenities and services that these draft documents envisage by having council assets that produce a commercial return. This council cannot shrink its way to good. I commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Vergara. I'll put the motion on that in favour. Sorry, Councillor Williams, the right of reply is finished. Those in favour? of the motion? Against the motion? That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Lane and Williams. We now move to Councillor Williams.
Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
Councillor Vergara impugned me as somebody who is supporting rate increases. That is not correct. And I would.
I don't believe that she named you as someone that supported.
She didn't name.
No,
but she said that those that don't support where this process is heading support rate cuts, rate increases, and that is just not a good.
Thank you for thank you for clarifying and not for rate increases, Councillor Williams. We now move to
6. Because these items just be read by me, we might be able to defer that.
Okay. Councillor, yeah, we'll have to do 4.16. Sorry, councillors, can I get the only remaining speaker is Jim, and he's got wants to speak to item 4.16, which is the minutes of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee. Can I get a motion to move that forward? Moved, Councillor Vergara, seconded Councillor Kassab. Any discussion? All those in favour? Against? Do that again. All those in favour? Councillor Prieston.
Dissenting.
Oh, dissenting. Sorry. That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Prieston. We now move to item 4.16, the minutes of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee meeting. We have one speaker, Jim Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I commence by tabling the motion that's actually put at that meeting. There is a slight distortion of the motion that I put to the meeting, and that is it doesn't have the header on it, and there's something gone wrong with the numbering. You can have that as a record for it to be corrected. But basically, what I'm here for tonight on this one is to ask that be a small amendment of the motion rather than just to receive a note. I think to be clear that the submission of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee, which is after all an expert, although only advisory committee of council, it's necessary that council agree to the submission they propose being submitted. So for that, to that end, I think there's a wording that'll be on your advice of my addressing council on the sheet you have in front of you. I would suggest that we add a word to the motion along the lines of that the recommendation of the BMAC opposing development application DA 2023 0094 for alterations and additions to Woolwich Marina because of its impact on Kelly's Bush be submitted, and an objection made during the current exhibition period, which finishes on Friday, the 27th of July. That's simply all I request of about this matter.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Prieston, you've got a question?
Can I ask a question to the chair of the committee through you, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Would you be able to explain
Yes.
in relation to what Jim's...
If I've understood correctly, and from what I can see here, it's in regards to the submission opposing the development of the Woolwich Marina, and it was discussed at the meeting.
This is item 4.1 of the...
where is that?
Yes, 498. So
yeah. So there was a submission that Jim had brought to the meeting. When we discussed it, it was made clear by council staff that as a committee we could not make a submission. However, we encouraged the committee members, if they wished to make a submission, they could do so on their own, and that we would provide Jim's submission to those members in case they wanted to use it. But otherwise, and what I've just explained did take place, but we are not able to submit in any other way.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions? If not, thank you, Jim. There is a motion to receive a note. Is it moved?
Sorry, just for a further question to the chair.
Councillor Lane. Yes.
Sorry, at the end of 4.1 has the motion been passed by the committee? So that is a motion.
That's a different. So
It seems to be 4.1.
Mm.
And if that's so, I think you're right that the committee can't do it on its own. But what former councillor Sanderson is asking us to do is to amend our recommendation so as to make that objection on behalf of the committee. In which case that can be done in this council.
well,
Yeah, I guess that's what Jim is asking.
yeah, so we can amend so I see what you're saying and I understand what you're saying, but we can't amend it to say that it's on behalf of the whole committee. It can only be what needs to be amended is the fact that that the committee accepted what Jim brought to the meeting, and that members of the committee were advised that they could make submissions on their own. However, a submission as a group could not be made.
Councillors, there's a motion. Is there a mover? Moved. Councillor Vergara, seconded. Councillor Saab, sorry. Yep. Is there any discussion? Councillor Vergara. Sorry, Councillor Saab, yes, no?
Like it clearly needs to be.
I will reiterate, these are minutes of a Bushland Management Committee meeting. If they are an advisory body, they do not make submissions on behalf of council. If council wishes to make a submission, that's a whole different story, but council is not obliged to, nor would I advise a committee formalising a council position. It's advisory only, and these are minutes of that meeting. So, councillors, Councillor Lane.
I'd like to foreshadow a motion, and I believe that's captured in the wording that former councillor Sanderson has put up, which is that the recommendation, and yes, it's captured as a resolution, but I think that should read recommendation in the notes, opposing the development be submitted as an objection. So that can be made by this council now, and I'd like to foreshadow that the recommendation be numbered 1 and there be a second item which has the same wording as is provided.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. That is foreshadowed. Councillors,
No,
discussion?
I'd move it as an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay, I'll move it as an amendment.
Moved as an amendment. Councillor Lane, seconded.
Councillor Williams.
Councillor Williams. That is an amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against?
I find it curious that there's no explanation as to why you're voting against all of these. Are we?
I just explained to you, Councillor, it would be incredibly ill-advised to allow an advisory body and an individual from an advisory body formalise a quite serious submission on a development application. That was my explanation for it. Sorry, councillors, I'm going to put that again. All those in favour of the motion? Of the amendment, sorry, Councillor Williams. Two. All those against? 4. Thank you. That is lost. Councillors, we now move to the original minutes or receiving and noting. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, can I ask if you would indulge me, if we could move into committee of the whole, because we've got 2 items to consider and we've got some people to present to us. The others can either be dealt with afterwards or we can deal with them in block now. Is there a preference? We've got 2 presentations.
Well, they're just read by me.
Yes. Councillors, I'm in your hands. We can move the rest of the motions as block. Moved, Councillor Priest.
With the exception of?
With the exception of
4.12.
4.12.
4.14.
Yep. But councillors, if we're going to do that, I'm suggesting we'll go into committee of the whole.
Yeah.
We've got people to present evidence.
Yeah.
So we can deal with them after.
Do we have people to present?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sorry. Councillors, do we have a motion to move into committee of the whole? Or into closed session, sorry. Moved, Councillor Kassab, seconded. Councillor Councillor Tanus Sleeman, sorry, I need to be a bit quick. Any discussion? If not, all those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll close the